All right, MVP, your favorite. Who's the MVP?
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I'd have no problem with Lamar. I would be interested if the voting did happen right now because they're 5-3, and the voters are. I mean, it's become like Heisman voters. He's coming off a loss. It's the last thing we saw, but he was like so far ahead in the perceived MVP race before that game, and they didn't lose it because of the offense necessarily.
And it's also so stupid because everybody is always going to have a couple of those games. The question is, when did they happen, right? So Jared Goff, people are going to be like, Jared Goff's MVP right now. Jared Goff played like crap for the first 2 weeks of the season, but they were the first 2 weeks, and nobody remembers that anymore, right? If Jared Goff had like his bad game last week, we'd be like, there goes his MVP candidacy out the window.
He also has a ton of hidden fumbles that have not mattered whatsoever. If those just became interceptions or whatever, it would change perception.
But simply order. Like if you just moved his 2 bad games
don't even get
anywhere randomly in like mid-game and then last week, nobody would even be mentioning him for MVP.
2021, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady had the exact same game against the Saints, but Brady's happened in week 15 or whatever, and Rodgers was week 1, and people are like, I don't even what? Week 1?
Yeah,
that doesn't count. That didn't even happen this season.
Right. That just always I find funny that when you have these games, not even like key moments or crunch time or opposition, it's just like simply random distribution. When they came in the season is going to dictate whether people remember them enough to count them against the player or not.
The interesting thing about Lamar, or even a Mahomes, who I don't think is anywhere in this discussion right now, but there is this idea of you're just perpetually valuable, and no matter what you do, there's this elevating of the team. So I think the case for Lamar is stronger this year than last year, where he became this hands down, it's got to be Lamar. He had great games the last 3 weeks of the season when it mattered. But you see Derrick Henry come in, and all of a sudden, he's putting up offensive player of the year type of numbers. There's inherently value coming from Lamar that is rubbing off on Derrick Henry. I think you feel that more this year, where the Ravens defense is not as stout as it's been. They've been rough on that side of the ball from a pass defense perspective. Good against the run, not great against the pass. Lamar, I think, has a stronger case this year as a 5-3 team, not a 14-3 team. And I think he's played better overall to this point in the season.
Well, also, so like Aaron Donald, I think it's very easy to simply forget that he affects every game on every play simply by being there, right? It gets very easy to sort of forget how much teams have to think about it's Lamar Jackson. If one of the reasons I think that Barry Sanders is the greatest running back that's ever played is that people talk about him, players that had to play him, and coaches. Bill Belichick does this. When you hear them talk about, we're playing Barry Sanders this week, the panic and like focus on just make sure we don't screw up any play, because if we do, he's gone, touchdown, right? That has value. That has immense value. And that's why those guys are different. Like nobody ever talked about Emmitt Smith in that way, right? They were like vague contemporaries a year apart or whatever in the draft. 2 guys at the top, putting up insane numbers. Nobody ever spoke in those terms about Emmitt Smith. But every player you hear talk about Barry Sanders speaks about him in those terms. That's how people focus on Aaron Donald. That's how people think about Lamar Jackson as well. Nobody's thinking that way about Jared Goff. Nobody's coming into a game going, whatever you do, don't switch off and cover 2 because Goff's going to touchdown. They're just not.
I like Jared Goff a lot. When I look at the Lions, I'm like, I love every receiver, every tight end, every running back, their offensive line. Their special teams just scored 40 points or something on Sunday. I mean, the whole team is just outstanding.
But that's an inherent value that he brings to the table. I think it's very easy to just forget about randomly in a season where you're like, oh, look, these 2 guys have similar stats. Let's go with the other guy. Like, but the other guy's not affecting it the same way.
And I would say generally Mahomes has that same ability.
Yeah.
But when you really watch the Chiefs this year, you're like, man, the defense has saved them a ton. It's a defense-first team. Mahomes has had a ton of key plays at the end. He's played far better in the fourth quarter than he has in the first 3, but certainly not playing at his normal level.
Both of us wanted to at least shout out Jaden Daniels.
So he's actually my pick. So
he's your pick?
Yeah, like I put Lamar into the chat initially, and then I'm rethinking it, and so now I'm doing the thing where I'm saying I would take Jaden Daniels.
Okay.
Let's discuss.
And this is only a couple of weeks after sort of scoffing at that as a notion.
I didn't scoff.
I did. People were bringing up Jaden Daniels MVP after like 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. You're like, come on, let's tap the brakes a little bit. But
I have a history of like, let's tap the brakes, give me more evidence, and then I'll come around to it. I think like in 2015 when Cam Newton was playing, I didn't think he was playing at an MVP level. That was his MVP season. And then he played more, and he played more, and I got more evidence, and I'm like, yeah, he's playing at an MVP caliber level. I'm
still
there.
would have given it to Carson Palmer.
Still, Carson Palmer was so good that year. Honestly, Brady could have won it that year too. Everybody got hurt around him. Jaden Daniels. And I'm going to bring it up. I wanted to bring this up from this perspective. Similar to the Texans last year. We said, hey, CJ Stroud's going to Houston, and I don't know about his pass catchers, and Bobby's a first-time play caller, and this and that. And he was outstanding, and Stroud probably deserves the most credit there.
Right.
But you also had a Bobby Slowick coming from the Shanahan tree, and the Shanahan scheme was the thing that was beating the NFL. So you had that advantage. Jaden Daniels seemingly went to Washington with none of those advantages. We had Cliff Kingsbury coming back from Thailand or whatever with like a history of, a couple good years with Kyler Murray, but like a stale scheme.
Yeah, with an offense that was like a concern.
Yes.
It's like, can this offense even function in the NFL still?
And then you look at Jahan Dotson was supposed to be their number 2 receiver, and they traded him before the year, and we're like, yeah, De'Ami Brown's good enough. And so it's Terry McLaurin as a true number 1, a bunch of questions at receiver, an aging tight end in Zach Ertz, like questionable offensive line. We were sitting there in draft night saying, when are they going to draft an offensive lineman? They waited till late round 3. And so nothing around Jaden Daniels was supposed to be great. And this offense is historically good so far to this point. And he deserves the most credit. I cannot be more impressed with Jaden Daniels, even if they were 5-3 and that Hail Mary didn't hit, which was pure luck. That has nothing to do with Jaden Daniels' legend. The legend is the fact that he's had incredible efficiency throwing the ball. When he's not throwing the ball, he's saving incompletions by scrambling and picking up positive yards. He's a designed run game weapon, one of the best scramblers in the NFL, if not the best right now. And the accuracy and decision making has been unbelievable so far for Jaden Daniels. And the entire team that has not been good in forever has been elevated in Washington, and they're sitting there in first place. So Dan Quinn deserves some credit. But I would say Jaden Daniels probably deserves more credit for elevating Washington than, say, C.J. Stroud deserved for elevating Houston last year, even though I think it's a similar type of situation.
Yeah, and to me, the most impressive thing has been, again, he's had an answer for everything that's been thrown his way. He hasn't just been getting by with a sort of one-trick style that hasn't yet been found out. Every different team he's faced almost has come up with a completely different way of trying to slow him down, trying to knock him off his game, and every single time he's cleared the hurdle, right? Whether they're going to blitz the crap out of him, whether they're going to drop 8 all game, whether he actually needs a play at a key time to come up with, 0 blitz, boom, touchdown to McLaurin for the game against the Bengals. Like every single time he's had to find something, he's found it. And every single time he's been challenged in a new way, he's risen to that challenge. It's been really, really impressive.
So I'm right. I'd say Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson for me, right up there in the MVP conversation.
All right. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.